Hello and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all the news from Star Citizen from the week just past. I am your host Mac, so let's get on with it. This week, 4.1 gets added to the roadmap, the Carrack was released, plus we hear from the vehicle experience team regarding their plans for the future. So before we begin, a quick update in regards to the roadmap and the Carrack. 4.1 has now been added to the roadmap, which does contain very little at this present time. However, CIG do intend to add to it over the next few weeks. To see exactly what this patch contains, I have linked my roadmap update video below. Also linked below is my Anvil Carrack video. It is now available to EVA and owners on the PTU. It is a very impressive ship, so be sure to check that out if you're interested. So kicking off inside Star Citizen this week, we looked at the second part of the moons coming to MicroTech. This is Clio, Euterpe and Calliope. Now these moons were made completely with the new PlanetTech version 4. There is no previous PlanetTech in any of them. They said that they can make use of the entire library, so they decided to take some rocks from the caves. They created snow and ice materials for them and arranged them in different ways to give a much more different look. PlanetTech version 4 allows them to increase the speed of development and increase the quality as well, so it's a win-win. Now, for example, Lyria took 2 devs 1 full month to create. For MicroTech's 3 moons, in less than 1 month, 1 dev has completed 2 of them, with another dev completing the 3rd. So it is so much quicker at getting these developed. And a lot, back in the day, a lot of people were worried about how long it's going to take them to create all of the solar systems, considering it's taking them this long to create one. This is how they're going to do it, through iteration and getting the back-end tools working to this standard. Now, all of MicroTech's moons are kind of frozen, icy and rocky in design. They each have their own little colour scheme as well. These are also the first moons to feature ocean biomes. Now, Calliope doesn't have an ocean, whereas Euterpe has a frozen ocean and Clio has a fluid ocean, so it looks like we'll be able to do some drifts on Euterpe. Calliope, I think, is my favourite. It's really volcanic, rocky biome. It looks very cool. And these moons are now locked into the patch and ready to go with the 3.9 build. So excellent job there. It'll be very interesting to see how long it'll take them to create a complete system, maybe Pyro next, from start to finish. Anyway, for the final part of Inside Star Citizen, we got a room by room of the Carrack, but it is now out and available to check out in the PTU for EVA and I think owners at the moment. But I have done my own in-depth tour of the Anvil Carrack, looking closely at everything. I took my time over it, and I hopefully will point out areas of the ship which you may not have noticed, or things you may not have noticed. So I have linked that in the description below. It is about 40 minutes because it's a damn big ship, but it's cool nonetheless. So if you are interested, do click that link. So this week's Star Citizen Live was talking to the new vehicle experience team, and basically these guys are focused on the feel of the vehicles, how the cockpit feels, how they translate G-force and speeds, and also how they balance all of the ships and vehicles in the game in general. This also includes how combat works and feels, and making sure that it all feels good. So the next question was, can we get an option to power on the ships from the entrance? So basically, as we walk into the ship's ramp, can we turn on the power so we can see where we're going? And they say it's a very good idea. They will consider this going forwards, although it's not on the immediate to-do list. Next question, when will you fix snap to aim pips so fixed guns will become more competitive again? Now they do plan to fix this, but they don't want to say how just yet. From next week onwards, they have a huge focus on PvP gameplay, which includes finding out what does and doesn't work, like the fixed and gimbals and so forth, and then they'll see how they should work. Next question is, what factors do you consider when you are deciding how, say, a giant ship will fly in atmosphere? Now, they say it all depends on mass, thruster layout, and the purpose of the ship. Obviously, we have explorers, cargo haulers, refuelers, and so on. They all have their own characteristics. An example of this is the Hammerhead. With it being a military ship designed for combat, it needs to be quite maneuverable compared to something like a Starfarer, which is your heavy refueler, and it should be slow and cumbersome. Can you elaborate on the high-speed combat roadmap update? So basically they want to slow down the speed of combat. So they want combat to be engaged at a slower speed as the experience gets worse at super high speeds. They don't want to fake it by sort of artificially forcing people to combat at low speeds, so they want to see how they can have systems perform better at slower speeds and lesser at higher speeds. Kind of a way to encourage players to engage at low speeds. This will also make combat a lot closer, so shorter ranges, which I'm still on the fence of whether this is going to be a good thing or not. Obviously, we'll need to see what their plans are and how it gets implemented and how it feels. They're not currently entirely set on what it'll include. They do have a plan to do a lot of gameplay tests and figure out how each of these effects will work. They said they'll make small changes and test them, as they do have some plans in the works that they will be testing in the next few weeks. Now, it is important to note that they are not slowing the ships down. It is more certain things won't perform at higher speeds. So ships can still go as fast as you want them to. It's just encouraging you to slow down when you want to engage someone. Now, I do think it's a good idea that they ask the community to try these changes, as it, gives them the opportunity to have a much more wider range of testers rather than just the in-house group. I think it's important to give the community a hands-on to gather as much information regarding the a larger range of skill based as well. How good can the in-house testers be compared to the actual community? So hopefully they will address us. Not me personally, because I'm not all that great at combat in ships, but those who want to take part. Anyway, next question is, can we get a ground vehicle scroll wheel speed changer? Now, this has been asked before. It was voted again. But they did say that currently the ground vehicles do not go as quickly as they want them to, so it's not as critical right now. But they do have several updates to ground vehicles coming, and they will consider this. One, they are looking to improve the suspension system of vehicles so that they can handle terrain better and go much faster. This will then likely bring the need for a speed limiter. Now, personally, I would just like them to allow the ground vehicles to have whatever speed they want them to, so much faster than what we have today, and just leave it up to us to either slow down or limit our speeds, because if we hit a rock, then it's our own fault. So hopefully we'll get something like that later down the line. Currently, signature detection and stealth mechanics don't really make a difference. What is being done for this? Now, they say they do have a balance pass planned, which will give components individual behaviours so people can spec their ships out and achieve the certain type of signature they want. So you could maybe make your ship more stealthy. It all needs balancing as well so that the signals are correct, and this will be happening later this year. So that's great news. Again, someone asked about turrets, just what's going on. Now, they want to improve how they feel and the way that they move to allow the player to get on target easier. Also, they'll be doing a general balance of them and how powerful they are. They want to get turrets feeling fun and also make them a valid choice. So there's a lot of work to be done, and one day I'm sure they'll achieve it with turrets. Next question, what improvements are coming to ship UI? Now, they're working close with the UI team to communicate the level of features to the player so that we know what is going on and we understand what's going on with our ships. It was a bit brief, their answer, but I feel like it's important to communicate to the player what is happening with their ships as it happens, so we have as much information as possible to make the right decision. So I'm glad that this is part of the focus, but they didn't really elaborate too much with that question. Someone asked about landing cameras again. When are we going to be able to get them? Now, they're looking at future camera improvements, which could include parking cameras. Maybe it moves as you come into land. The difficulty is making the cameras work in various landing locations so that they don't clip through anything and obscure your view. Lots of features are planned for cameras going forwards, and I would personally love if they could just attach a camera to the underside of your ships, and then maybe using your MFDs display them while landing. It would be a great security feature as well. Obviously, if you're landing somewhere and you have a camera facing down, you could have someone looking down below, and if you see a creature darting past the camera, it would be pretty cool. Having this on your MFDs would be amazing. I know they said the difficulty is performance, having to render the same world twice using picture-in-picture. Fingers crossed they figure a method out that does it in this way, but we'll see. How will you improve fixed weapons due to the current extremely high aim requirements when using them? Similar question to before, but they are aware that the fixed weapons are not a good option right now. They have invested in some good analysis tools apparently, which can trace how ships fly and how bullets and missiles fly and so on. So this should really help them figure out what approach to take. Again, that's something they're focused on this year is getting combat working. What's the status of hover mode? Now, there has been some tweaks to the flight model. Going forward, they are changing the efficiency of thrusters in atmosphere, which will make them more reliant on aerodynamics, so making VTOL thrusters more critical in atmospheric flight. So this will make it feel more like the thrusters are trying to keep you in the air. They want ships to feel how they would in kind of real life, rather than adding or slapping on this hover mode. So the next question is, currently certain aerodynamic effects do not have significant effect on players, like maximum airspeed in a dive is the same as a climb. Now they say going forward the ships will have a strong dependency on their shape. Fighters will feel more aerodynamic compared to something like a Prospector, for example. Now this is obviously excellent to hear. The thrusters are what will get your ship off the ground, and the shape of the ship and how aerodynamic it is will keep you off the ground. Each ship will feel differently, and we have heard this stuff for a while now, but apparently Dave Coulson has a new prototype which the devs say feels really amazing. It's still going to be quite easy to hover, but the ship's characteristics really come into play at certain speeds. Now we also know that the plan to investigate a method using signed distance field is underway. This will take the ship's geometry at runtime and adjust the aerodynamics accordingly, so if a wing snaps off, then you will feel it in flight. If they can do this, this should have ships flying exactly as they would do in real life, but it's something they're investigating. It isn't something that is 100% certainty, so fingers crossed they find some good results. Next question is to do with the MFD screens, and do they want us to use them more? Now they say obviously in the heat of battle, MFDs become secondary to the HUD itself, but when you're in normal flight, you do engage more with the MFDs. I know I do. Multi-crew will be a huge area for MFDs, and again they want to ensure that each component does what it needs to do, but that it's always communicated to the player as well. They also want to bring in more key bindings so that if we want to change things on the fly we can do, which will be useful, kind of like adjusting your shields using the numpad. I guess that's quite handy, but I'm sure the new building blocks will have an effect with this. We'll have to wait and see what they look like. How will weather affect atmospheric flight? Now it will definitely make flight super difficult in some situations. We will feel the effects of the storms. They say if the wind is too strong, it's going to be really challenging. Obviously the less aerodynamic ships will struggle a lot more, so I really can't wait to see more effects there. Are there any thoughts to improve hover vehicles? Now they say they would love to tackle them. They know people want to use them on this new MicroTech version 4, especially getting down on the ground and seeing what it all looks like. But the focus right now is on flight and space, and this is the main premise of the game. They want to get the flight model how they want it to be, and then move on to the ground vehicles. Some of the flight tech will apply over to the ground as well, so it will not take as long for the ground vehicles. But yeah, they want to get flight model perfect before they move on. Next question, can we have the option to change what missiles or torpedoes we use? Now, funnily enough, there is on the 4.1 roadmap panel, which the video I've just put out, so be sure to click the link to that in the description below. One of the patches is a missile operator mode, which allows them to select what ordnance they want to use when. So that's good that that's getting in. Next question is to do with distortion damage. It's not really worth equipping them right now. Is there going to be coming changes to this? Now they said that when they look at combat, they will take a look at all the damage types and balance them to ensure that they all do what they're supposed to, and in distortion's case, making sure it has the correct effect to what it's supposed to do, like bringing down the shields, for example. Will the constellations oversteer be addressed? Now they said ships will have a big balance pass on them. This year they will be looking at all the ships and how they fit together and whether ships have the correct performance for their class, and if not, they will change it, they will address it. The same goes kind of for shields. Someone was saying that the shields on fighter jets are a bit too overpowered. They say do expect to see changes in the future. Now they have a summit soon which will address all the issues and create a plan to tackle everything. Next question, how is missile evasion intended to work? Will it always require countermeasures, or can we maneuver out of the way of them? And they say yes, evasion is an important way to avoid missiles. If you run out of countermeasures, you will still be able to evade them, but it will require a little bit of doing, but you're not going to have to solely rely on countermeasures. And then the final question is, with weapon weight on ships, will this affect the total mass of the ships? Now they say that the mass of weapons will be very minor, but obviously things like cargo mass will affect it a lot, and big ships will heavily rely on their VTOL thrusters going forwards. For example, if you load the Reclaimer up to the full, it will struggle a lot more to get off the ground than it would if it was empty. Now, it's still very early days for the vehicle experience team, and I feel they are still gathering a lot of data, plus they have not had their summit yet to really allow them to say what they are planning to work on first. This means a lot of the answers we got in this Star Citizen Live were a bit vague, but hopefully once they've had time to formulate a plan, we will hear more about what's coming up first and so on. To me, the takeaway from this is that ship combat, ship balancing, components and atmospheric flight appears to be high on their to-do list, and there should be some great progress on all of those areas this year. As Yogi said, he is very excited to see what they can achieve by the end of the year, and me too. I personally feel like this team has the potential to make great improvements to vehicles going forward, so fingers crossed we get what we want, and by the end of the year it feels like it's more of a finished, polished game in those areas. Anyway, that was it for this week's Star Citizen Live. Let's move on. So also this week, Galactic Guide took us to the Cano system, plus 2 members of the dev team working on prisons took part in a Spectrum AMA where they answered our questions over on the Spectrum page. Because there was quite a lot said, I decided to put this into a separate video which will come sometime maybe early this week, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. So that brings us to the end of the show. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a video. Hit that thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and share the video with all your friends. If you like what I do and want to help me make it better, follow the link below to my Patreon page to learn more.